Good morning. This is July 21st, 2010. And what I want to talk about today is the importance of the debt validation letter. This has to do with unfair debt collection practices. And let me tell you what the debt validation letter is. There's a lot of confusion out there. And what I want to do with this video is I want to try to clarify the confusion over what a debt validation letter is and also what rights you have regarding the debt validation letter and how to use it and so forth and so on, and also what rights you don't have, because a lot of people think that a debt validation letter somehow excuses them from the debt. That is not true. All right, what the law is, both in California and in the federal system, the law is that within 5 days after the initial contact by the debt collector basically has to send you a letter describing the amount of the debt owed, the original creditor, and so forth and so on. In short, they have to provide you with the information in writing by mail of what the debt is and what is owed. All right, that's what the debt collector has to do. Within 30 days after you get that information from the debt collector, you have the right under California law and under federal law to dispute the debt. You have to do it in writing. You can't call up and say, I don't owe this debt. It literally doesn't count in just about any law if you pick up the phone and say something over the phone, because you have no record of it. They may have a record of it. They may be recording the calls, but chances are they're not going to give it to you if the debt collector says anything stupid. So what you need to do is you need to put it in writing. It doesn't have to be a typewritten letter. It can be a handwritten letter. But you need to put in writing your response to the notification of debt from the debt collector. That's what you need to do. You need to send it certified mail to the debt collector. And in the debt validation letter, in the dispute letter, you put down basically any reason you're disputing the debt. You don't owe the debt. You've already paid off the debt. They're charging you the wrong amount, like they're charging you $1,000 and you only owe $100. Whatever the reason is, you have the right to dispute the debt. If you dispute the debt, what they're supposed to do is the debt collector is supposed to validate the debt. Now, let me tell you about the validation. A lot of debt collectors, I think, they intentionally skimp on the validation requirement. The validation requirement is that the debt collector has to get the backup documentation showing that you owe the debt. That's what the debt collector has to do. A lot of times I see a lot of debt collectors, what they'll do is the only information, the only document they have about your debt is some computer screen that shows that you owe the debt, which they got from God knows where, from the creditor, from some bank, from somewhere. They can't even tell you where they got it. A lot of times they cannot even tell you where they got the information on the computer screen. You understand that debt collectors buy these big portfolios of debts. The debts, it doesn't come with a little folder, for John Jones, for you, for your debt. It's just basically, a computer batch of these debts, a computerized batch of these debts that they buy, and then they try to start collecting on them. So a lot of times what the debt collector is going to give you is just a little computer screen printout showing that you supposedly owe the debt. If that's all they give you, that is not debt validation. And if that's all they can provide you, that right there is a violation of the unfair debt collection laws. And that's what you need to know. You have requested validation of the debt. You want the original documents from the creditor, the bank, the furniture company, the credit card company, whatever. You want the original documents from the original creditor showing that you owe the debt. That's what you specifically request when you send in your debt validation letter, and that's what you deserve. If they just give you some little computer screen printout showing that you owe the debt, that is not debt validation. And if that's all that they can give you, they have violated the federal and the state Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. Now, the debt validation letter that you send to the debt collector, you've got to send it certified mail. You've got to keep a copy, or you've got to keep a record showing that you mailed the letter out to the debt collector and showing that they received it. Obviously, keep a copy of the letter for yourself. After you send that letter and after the debt collector receives it, for 30 days, they're not supposed to be collecting on that debt at all, other than getting the information to validate your debt. Now, if they get the information that validates your debt and give it to you after 25 days, or send it to you after 25 days, then they're allowed to start collecting again. But generally, most debt collectors recognize that there's a 30-day period that they're not supposed to be collecting a debt if you send in a debt validation letter. Now, what that means and what that does not mean. That does not mean that you don't owe the debt. It does not mean that the debt collector is going to stop trying to collect the debt. You just have basically a 30-day period of silence during which the debt collector is supposed to be gathering the information for you, validating the debt. That's what the 30-day period is. We have a lot of consumers, a lot of people who come in and they say, well, if we send in the debt validation letter, they think that the debt collector doesn't have a right to collect on the debt anymore. That's not accurate, and that is not the role and the function of the debt validation letter. The debt validation letter is basically you telling the debt collector that you disagree with the debt that they're trying to collect against you. And don't just disagree because you feel like it. Disagree for a good reason. Again, one of the things in my office is if someone owes a debt, we don't deny it. But that still doesn't give any debt collector the right to do unfair debt collection practices. A lot of times the disagreement may be the amount of the debt. You'll get a debt collector sending you notice that they're trying to collect $5,000 when you only owe $250. We'll send a letter to the debt collector saying, I only owe $250. That's a perfectly valid, perfectly reasonable challenge to the debt, and you're allowed to make it. Don't just send out the debt validation letter just because you don't feel like paying it. If it's a debt that you do owe and you don't feel like paying it, honestly, what we recommend is to talk to the debt collector and just explain, that you're tight right now, you're having troubles and so forth and so on. Negotiate with them a little bit, but don't use the debt collection, the unfair debt collection statutes and laws. Basically try to squeeze out of a good debt. If the debt is good and valid, then you should be working out a reason to pay it. It doesn't give them a right to violate the debt collection laws, but basically what we're looking for in my firm is we're looking for the legitimate violations of the debt collection laws. That's what we're looking for. Now, the debt collection letter, it becomes important later on in your unfair debt collection practices lawsuit, because if you send out the letter requesting verification and they don't send you, validation or verification of the debt, that's a violation of the debt collection laws. And if they just send you some little computer screen, that is an insufficient validation. That's a violation of the debt collection laws. If they're going to be collecting on you, you have a right as a consumer to find out exactly what they're collecting on, and that is the role and function of the debt validation letter, nothing else. The role and function of the debt validation letter is giving you a tool so that you can find out exactly the debt that they're collecting on. I hope this information is helpful, and obviously please contact us if you have any questions.